Welcome to Rico 12. I'm Justin B., your host and a child of an all-powerful and perfectly loving God and an addict living in the miracle of recovery one day at a time. Rico 12 is dedicated to exploring the common threads of addiction, sharing tools, and offering hope from those walking a similar path. We gather from diverse backgrounds, faiths, and locations and fellowships to learn and support one another. Our speakers come from various fellowships and experiences demonstrating the universal principles of recovery. This is Rico 12 Speaker Meeting 330. Thank you for joining us live or on the recording later. Today's speaker is Michael S. discussing the 12-step program needs an update in 2025. I look forward to hearing his message shortly. And, every time Michael comes on, he says, this might be controversial. And I appreciate it. I love the thinking that we have and the opportunities we have to think about things when he speaks. But first, here's just a few quick announcements. Rico 12 offers a variety of recovery resources, including podcasts and social media communities. To explore more, visit rico12.com or check out the chat and show notes for links. I'll put those in the chat here in a few minutes. Also support Rico 12. Rico 12 is self-supporting, and your contributions help us continue this message. Thank you to all our Spearhead donors, past and present, especially Elizabeth this last week. We're grateful for your support. It truly does make a difference, not only financially, but your word of mouth. Share messages that resonate with you, with those in your fellowships, in your recovery networks. It just helps get the word out to more people who may benefit from these shares. If you'd like to contribute, visit rico12.com/support or check the links that I'll put in the chat and the show notes for one-time or monthly donation options. Each week, we receive light and inspiration from our speakers. Their experience brings hope, meaning, worth, and growth to us as listeners. Now I'm going to welcome today's guest speaker, Michael S., and just introduce you a little and give you a little bit more information about him. Michael has been in a variety of 12-step fellowships over the years. His primary fellowship is AA, even though he's not an alcoholic. He'll explain that. Currently, he is most active in SLAA and CODA. Michael's favorite topic to talk on is emotional sobriety, but in this meeting, he'll talk about his take on the 12-step programs and some thoughts on changes that could happen. He's been practicing as a licensed psychotherapist and life coach for the past 20 years. He and his family live in southwestern suburbs of Chicago, and Michael was a previous speaker on meetings 68, 110, 200, and 259, and now meeting 330. Take it away, Michael. The floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Justin. Fifth time. I don't know when I first was on here, Justin, but I know that in June, it'll be 12 years in a variety of fellowships. And I'm actually prepared, Justin. I got an outline here this time. Usually I just wing it, and I think the best speakers are who just share from the heart. And recently a good, one of my best friends passed away, a friend of mine for 25 years. And I had the honor of speaking at his funeral. And he had hundreds of people there, and just honored that his wife chose me. And I had a nice presentation, and then I just something has told me to say, put that aside and speak from the heart, and just spoke what I need to speak. So I'll look down it a few times, look down at my notes here. But really, I just want to make sure that when I share here, this is just my experience, strength, and hope. I don't want to give advice. I don't want to tell you what to do. Whatever you're doing, if it's working for you, great. This is just my experience. And so one of the things I've really enjoyed about this program is being able to say that publicly. This is my experience. So if you're mad at me or upset with me, that's okay. It's just my experience. And trust me, I have had people be upset with me over the years. If you go to enough meetings, I find that people, and you speak your truth, certain people will get triggered, will be upset with you. And I've learned a lot about that, learned a lot about boundaries. Maybe talk about that a little later. Like I said, in June of this year, we had 12 year in a variety of different fellowships. I started off with Misery Addicts Anonymous, Self-Sabotage Anonymous, which was based off of a book by Anne Catherine. I'm just looking around the screen here. I don't think I know anybody here, so maybe I'll delve into my story a little more so you can get to know me a little better. But I started with Misery Addicts Anonymous, Self-Sabotage Anonymous. Then I went to AA, but I'm not an alcoholic. I'll tell you about that. Then I was in Codependence Anonymous, Depressions Anonymous, Sex and Love Addictions Anonymous, SPAA, Sex and Porn Addictions Anonymous, Overeaters Anonymous, Emotional Anonymous. I've been to Cocaine Anonymous meetings. I started a 12 Steps for Everyone virtual program several years ago and did that for about a year. I've read the big book and the Overeaters Anonymous big book and the Depression Anonymous big book and the SLAA big book. There's a lot of different big books. I've read those. Like many of you have done seminars, workshops, therapy, books for depression. And I struggle with process addiction. So for me, process addiction is not like chemical addictions. I've never, for whatever reason, struggled with chemical addictions. But my drug of choice is depression and women. I found out later, which I share. Well, I should share about AA. So it goes into, I started the 12-step program. Like I said, almost 12 years ago. I was married for about 15 years, going through a divorce. And if you've ever been through a divorce, brutal. I have a 9 and 6-year-old at the time, and I had no clue. First of all, I had no clue how codependent I was on my wife, with my ex-wife, but my wife at the time. I don't think I know. I wouldn't have asked for a divorce. I wouldn't have had the courage, and I wasn't happy that she did. But I spent a lot of time talking about the gift of divorce and how much divorce has helped me grow to the person I am today. I would never be the person I am today. My kids would never be the kids they are now. They're 18 and 15, a senior and a sophomore, but they were 9 and 6. And I was looking at some pictures. That's a young age. My younger son, he said he doesn't hardly even remember me living at home and us being married. I was broken. The highest rate of suicide in the nation, or it was, or at least very close, is men who are divorced or widowed. Highest rate of suicide in the nation. And I was right there. I, by the grace of God, somehow found AA. I said I did Misery Acts Anonymous, but I'll say it's found AA. I found this fellowship of 12 steps by reading an article saying that maybe depression could be treated as an addiction. And I went to get the big book, Alcoholics Anonymous. It said go to a meeting. And so I found a meeting about a mile from my house on Tuesday and Thursday mornings. And I told the people I walked in, listen, I'm not an alcoholic. I struggle with depression. And can I come? I think this is my last ditch. If this doesn't work, I'm fucked. I'm in big trouble. I'm only going to swear one time today, promise. I'm trying not to swear. They looked around the circle and they said, sure. And, I have a strong belief about singleness of purpose, and I'll talk more about that. But if they didn't let me in that group, I don't know if I'd be here today. And they said, as long as you stop drinking, you could stay. And I said, okay, I could stop drinking. And I got a sponsor in that group. And, I just have then 12 steps has been a big part of my life for many years. About 5 years ago in August, I went away to the Meadows in Wickenburg, Arizona for 45 days for their love addiction, love avoidance program. And I am jealous of those who relapse because I loved it there. It was really a great structure for me, really worked for me really well, and really helped me move past some things I was struggling with in the time. I want to talk about what's changed over the years. So who I am now, I was telling Justin, who I am now is just not who I was 12 years ago. And some of the things I'm going to talk about today, I'm not sure how it changed or when it changed. Kind of like a spiritual awakening or a spiritual experience. To me, my definition of that is the example I use. One day after about a year or so, I walked into my AA meeting and the guy said, you're laughing, Michael. You're smiling, you're joking around. And they were correct. And I didn't know if that happened 5 minutes ago or 6 months ago. And that's kind of what I'm going to share about today. There's some things that have really shifted in the last year for me around this program. And I've been having a struggle grasping why that is and really trusting myself that I'm not fooling myself. That do I really know what is best for Michael? And turning 51 in January, that's been probably the big thing since I've turned 50, which is this distinction between I'm powerless versus I know what's best for Michael. And it's a difficult distinction I'm powerless for so long that I just don't trust myself anymore. And I realized that I'm starting to trust myself more and leaning away from the higher power and more to trusting my inner power. I'll talk about my higher self. Now, I know when I say that, if somebody was told me this a couple of years ago, what do you mean you're leaning away towards your higher power? That's what this program's all about. Without my higher power, I can't stay sober. And I'm noticing, and I don't know why this is, but I'm noticing myself becoming more agnostic over the last year. And I've been trusting myself in my inner voice versus what I consider often a higher power, something outside of me. That without that outside higher power, I'm in big trouble. And it's been troubling me to do this because I have a podcast, my own podcast. It's called My Blueprint Struggle Towards Emotional Sobriety. Been doing it for about 6 years, got 350 episodes plus, all about Michael all the time. Just like the big book says, I am selfish to the extreme, no doubt about it. But they're short; they're like 8 to 10 minutes. It's kind of like my online journal. And I know Jordan or Justin will put this in the link later after the show. So I really realize I have progressed though in the 12 years that I used to be selfish to the extreme. I think I'm just plain old selfish now, which is improvement for an addict like us. And any addict, I think, is the core of any addict is they're selfish, egotistical, righteous. And I know that about me. And the more I know about it, the healthier I could be. Um, I want to talk a little more about what's changed over the last few years, and then I want to talk about what's worked and what doesn't work for me with the program anymore. So I've been in a healthy relationship for about 2 years. I've dated a ridiculous amount of women over the last 10 years, short-term, long-term, tried sober dating. I think I did an episode, I don't know what number it is, about sober dating. Didn't work for me. I'm not going into that today, but one of my episodes of that I've done in the past, I talked all about sober dating. I've got involved in a lot of other things over the years, the last couple of years. I'm part of a comedy improv group, a men's group. I do a part-time job at a golf course. I'm part of a men's golf league. I'm part of an exercise group. And I've really expanded my horizons. My life has got fuller. When I first started this program, my life was not very full. I just went to a whole bunch of meetings, and I needed to. I didn't have any other outlet, and I needed to do that for quite some time. But over time, 12 steps became my new addiction. I went to a ridiculous amount of meetings, sometimes 3 a day, and it saved my life. So nothing against that, saved my day. But my therapist pointed out one time, Michael, you need a life outside of 12 steps. I'm like, what are you talking about? All my friends are in 12 steps. That's all I do is 12 steps. When I sit alone and I'm bored for a second, if I'm bored for a second back then, I had to go to a meeting. I couldn't be with myself. I've always been an introvert, but over the last year or so, I've developed more into my introverted self. One of the things I saw a TikTok the other day, and I love this lady. She was an introvert, and it was kind of people were asking, like, "Do you want to get together?" And she's like, "No." And they're like, "Why not?" "Well, I just don't want to." "Well, what are you doing?" "Nothing." "Okay." And I love somebody invited her or invited her somewhere. I just don't want to go, or she would cancel, and she would when people canceled on her, she said, "No problem. That's fantastic. I get to spend time by myself." Now I couldn't spend time by myself for many years, and now I can spend time by myself. I can meditate. I could do things on my own, and I find myself going to very few, if any, 12-step meetings now. Now, again, if I was listening to myself just a few years ago, I'd be like, oh God, this guy, he's going to relapse any second. He doesn't believe in a higher power. He's struggling with that. He's not going to a lot of meetings. He's not sponsoring people. He's not doing XYZ. Oh, geez, just a matter of time. Like, come back for me on the 420th episode here for Justin. You'll hear my story of like how, listen to 330, and this is not how to do a program. And I've been really working with that. So it's not like I've been taking that lightly. Let's see what else I'm being introverted. Okay. So that's kind of what's changed. Some things have changed. And I'm going to talk about now from my perspective. what doesn't work for me in the 12-step program. And now I know at the beginning, this wouldn't have been good because, at the beginning, we come part of this program, part of our addiction is, oh, I can make money off this program, or I want to change this program, or I have a better way of doing it. And as addicts, that's what we do, right? If you ever been to like what are they like? Not a board meeting, like a fellowship meeting. Jordan, what's those called? Like where the youth, all the, I don't know what they're called.
Like a business meeting?
Yeah, something like a business meeting. You hear a whole bunch of addicts talking and trying to say how the program could be better. It could get pretty ugly. But I got some years under my belt. I'm just not making this stuff up. And I'm just going to go through some bullet points. And again, this is my experience. One thing I'm learning in life, and it's really hard, that this is just my experience right now in the moment. It might be different in 5 minutes. It might be different tomorrow morning. I'd be a horrible politician. You wouldn't want to vote for me because I'd be pro-life or pro-choice. But then I would learn some things in life or have some experience and then I'd say, you know what? I'm changing my platform. I would never be elected. Now, some people would like me, but I wouldn't be elected because this guy's wishy-washy. And I always believe that. Like when I stated my opinion on something, it had to be like lifelong because that's what I viewed people as. And so if I have an opinion today and I come back a week, month, a year, and they said, guess what? My opinion changes. I would have tons of shame. Now, I love acronyms. I've talked a lot about acronyms. And I got about hundreds of them. Some I made up and some I stole from this program or other program. But shame for me, and I'm sure you heard some of these. This one I didn't make up, but I wish I did. Self-hate and mental exhaustion. Actually, I made that one up. Self-hate and mental exhaustion. But the other one is shame, should have already mastered everything. And that's how I live life. And I got a lot of messages earlier in life that when I made a mistake, it's like, what are you doing, Michael? You should know how to manage money better. You shouldn't do that. That was stupid. I recently invested in a stock and I'm committed to keep it for 10 years. Okay. Now, either you're going to be, Michael, you are the most brilliant man ever. You just turned $1,000 into $400,000. Or the stock will go like bankrupt tomorrow morning and you'll be like, you're an idiot. Right. That's like the fine line. So losing my train of thought here. So we'll just start where here. I'll come back to wherever I was going with that. So here's some things that I think need to be changed from my perspective. Page 1 through 164 is how the program works, right? It kind of works for me because I'm a kind of a heterosexual male, white male, and it does work for me. But the language needs to be changed. It was written back a long time. It's not politically correct. If I was a female, I would not be happy at all reading this. If I was of a different gender or sexuality, I would not feel included. And I know a lot of old timers aren't too happy about this idea, but it needs to change. I've met a lot of people just because of the wording and reading those pages. It's like this program's not for me. It's not inclusive. It is an inclusive program from my perspective. If you don't believe in God and a higher power and spiritual awakening and spiritual experience, this program's not for you and it will not work. And I've been a believer of this for many years and still I think I am. That with this program, if you don't have a spiritual awakening or spiritual experience, it doesn't matter how many meetings I go to, how many people I sponsor, how much service I do, how much anything I do. Without that spiritual experience, and it says it several places in the big book and in this work, I'm going to relapse. I'm not going to be able to recover. And that's okay. But that's just the core of this program. Now, I used to be somebody that I would sponsor people. Now, I'll talk about my sponsorship a little. I'll get you to talk about sponsorship now that I'm honest. I've seen more bad sponsors than good sponsors, to tell you the truth. Now, I'm a little biased. I'm a psychotherapist. I've been a psychotherapist for 25 years. A psychotherapist is not a sponsor. Sponsor is different than a psychotherapist. I see a face. Oh, no, sponsorship, bad. I've just seen some really bad sponsorship, and you got people who aren't that sober yet helping other people. And it's just my experience. In all the people I've sponsored, I've tried to sponsor a lot of people. I've got about a 20% success rate. About 2 out of 10, I get through the steps. Now, I used to think that's me, but some people say it's a pretty good number. That's pretty average for most people. I work only with men. And I think that's a problem. Now, I used to say, well, they're just not ready or they haven't hit their rock bottom. But I started to look at that. Maybe I need to be trained as a sponsor better. And I just see some, I don't even want to go into the details here, but I've just seen some sponsors do a lot more harm than good to people. Now, I'm not saying I had a great sponsor. I'm sure you guys have great sponsors. There are good sponsors, but some of the ones that haven't is really a detriment to this program. Um, let's see, co-ed meetings. I'm a firm believer on this, and I've said this on other RICO 12 meetings here. I don't believe in co-ed meetings, especially for sex and love addicts like me and a codependent like me. I also went to rehab, like I said, 5 years ago. That should not, from my perspective, been a co-ed rehab. I really struggled for myself I made a commitment not to talk to women or have a little conversation with women because that was my drug of choice. And I knew myself well enough that my drug of choice is a woman who is vulnerable, who is self-evolved, who is working a good recovery program, who is somebody who is committed to better themselves. Now, if I find that woman attractive, I'm in big trouble. I know that. And in rehab, while they say obviously you can't have romantic relationships, I saw so many guys that I became friends with and then a woman would come in the program, and then they stopped going to meetings, they stopped going to therapy sessions. I'll talk a little about why I've got kicked out of several fellowships. I don't know if you had anybody from Spiritual Gangsters, but this happened several years ago. I was asked to leave. Now, I think I should have been asked to leave because I think I did some things that weren't horrible, were not appropriate. And I've seen more men and women. It's this analogy. If you're an alcoholic, just imagine saying, go to a bar 4 to 6 times a week, sit at the bar, and we're going to give you your favorite drink right in front of you. And just don't touch it and have enough discipline. So I just think, from my belief, for me personally, co-ed meetings do more bad than good. So I go to almost all men's meetings right now. Um, I only sponsor men. I only do outreach to men. And people say, yeah, but you're missing out on what women contribute. I agree. I am missing out. But the downside of the possibility of, connecting with a woman, and I've tried, trust me, I've tried, and it just hasn't worked for me. So that's one thing I think should change. Let's see. Okay. Sponsorship. Talk about that. Good. I'm running out of time, so this is good. Um, oh, I'm Jewish. I think this is not really based on me. It's men and women who have listened to my podcast, who have heard me on Rico 12, have called me and said, Michael, when did you convert? I know I haven't. I'm still Jewish. And they sound like, you really sound like you're a Christian. That's what they tell me. And I said, well, what are you talking about? Like, some of the things, your wording and the way you speak, it sounds like you converted to Christianity. I said, no, I'm still Jewish. And there's things in the program that this program has developed out of Christianity. And there's things that are subtle. Now, for me, the Lord's Prayer, to me, that's a Christian prayer. Now, my rabbi disagrees. She's been in recovery for 25 years in Alcoholics Anonymous. She tried to explain to me how it's not. It's something we don't say at synagogue. We don't do the Lord's Prayer. There's some subtleties. And if you talk to people who are Jewish or maybe of different religions, they'll agree. But so that just hasn't worked for me. Let's see. I could just go to so few meetings now, guys. I don't know what to say about that. I really struggle. We'll talk about this higher power. I think that's the last thing I'll talk about, which is the biggest deal for me. I don't use the word higher power or God anymore in the last year. I don't know what happened, but I just don't. And I use the term higher self and lower self. I don't know why, I just do. I meditate and I enjoy meditating. Meditating is one of the strongest spiritual tools I have in this program. And when I meditate, I hear a distinction between my higher self and my lower self. And when I hear that higher self, the higher being, that's what I act on. And I'm able to distinguish that. And the higher self versus higher power for me, higher self is inside. For me, I stated earlier, the higher power is outside of me. And when I talk about emotional sobriety, my definition of emotional sobriety is to be able to stay serene and content and fulfilled and happy without depending on something outside of me, some external person, place, or thing. And somehow my higher power became something outside of me. And people said, well, you could be dependent on a higher power. That's fine. But for me, I just couldn't get my arms around it. And it's actually, talking to a good friend of mine after this call, I think it's going to cause some disruption for me and some of my friends. Because the way I stayed connected with people is we had a commonality of spirituality and commonality of we went to 12-step programs together. And now that I don't go to as many 12-step programs together and we don't have that same connection with higher power, it's kind of like when you work at a job for a long time, right? And then you have friends in that job. But then when you leave that job, you stay friends for a little, but I found it's really hard to stay close with those people over time. All right, my conclusion is, again, if you talk to me tomorrow morning, I could have a completely different belief. And instead of going to shame, I'm going to go to humility. And humility is I'm humble, that I'm open to somebody asks me a question or have an experience that shows up in my life to say, you know what, man, I could see where you're coming from. And I'm open to look at that. But the new skill I'm really developing when I've turned 50 is to stand firm in my belief and not to lose myself, to trust myself, to trust that I know what's best for Michael. Now, that was not something, and it's still something scary to say, because when I first started the program, and what I hear in the rooms often is I cannot trust myself. I do not know what's best for myself. I need to call my sponsor. I need to talk to God. I need to run it by a lot of people. I'm not saying that's not good, but I got to the point where everything I had to do, I had to get the approval. I had to have other people say, yeah, send that email. And I want to be able to say, I trust myself. I stopped, I breathed, I paused, postponed action until serenity enters. You get that one, guys? Pause, postpone action until serenity enters. I meditate. I could do a lot of this on my own. Now, again, I even notice when this comes out of my mouth. If I would have heard myself saying this a few years ago, I'd be like, oh, this guy's in big freaking trouble. All right. Only swore one time. I'm a big respect of time, people. One of my big pet peeves is on meetings. I have a lot of pet peeves, right? I'm an addict. I'm sure I have 4 steps on these things, right? Big pet peeve is people look at the clock. They have 1:30 left here, right? Time's up. And then people say, I know time's up, right? But I got to say one more thing. And then they say one more thing. So I'm not going to do that. I'm going to end on time. And I look forward to your questions and hope you got some value out of it.
Got questions about addiction, recovery, or just life in general? Let's noodle it out together. Grab your big book, a pen, a highlighter, and a notepad, and join Nikki M and me, Justin B, on Rico 12 Noodle It Out with Nikki M. Each episode, we take real-life questions, ours, yours, and those from the recovery community, and dig deep into the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous to find real, practical solutions. So, if you're ready to do the work and apply the solution, tune in to Noodle It Out with Nikki M, streaming now on your favorite podcast platform. Thank you, Michael. I appreciate that. And I'm going to turn off the clock so it doesn't beep in our ears here in a minute. So, excellent. Thank you so much for your share. And as always, Michael, this is something that causes me and others to think and go, okay, where is that at? And I love how you talked about this open-mindedness type process. If somebody comes to me and says, "Hey, I've got this point. Why don't you listen to it?"
Well,
Okay, I'll listen to it and
your
consider it.
response is,
I love that. So I'm gonna mute that. Okay, very good. So, Michael, one question that came up in the chat that I want to address with you. Um, you have attended a boatload of different fellowships, different sobriety definitions, and so on and so forth. Talk to us a little bit about the meaning in your life of sobriety, dates, how long you've been sober, and tell us a little bit about your thoughts on that.
Oh, I got a lot of thoughts on that one. Whoever asked that question, I do not like counting days. I'm not a big fan of that. When people say about 127 days of whatever sobriety, I'm not a big fan of that. I think it becomes more of an ego thing. And when they break or something happens, they slip. So often they don't come back, or that's just so devastating. I had a guy once who I worked with. This is a psychotherapist. He ran every single day for 5 years, didn't miss a day, 1 mile. And I said, well, what happens if you missed one day? He said, I'll just give up running. I don't think that was good. So I'm not a big believer of counter. I like if you're going to count, count how long you've been in the program. Because I slip a lot. Slip is sudden loss in priority. I slip a lot. And I need to learn how to have humility versus shame. And my slips, if you're not slipping, you're not working the program from my perspective. Because the way I slip is I go on the world and I try some of this stuff and experiment with dating. And I made a lot of mistakes and then I got humbled. Give me that question again, Jordan. There's another part of that question I wanted to answer.
Yeah. What's your take on sobriety dates and how long? Let's see. Let me read this. The specific question is how long you've been sober from sex addiction is what the question that came in from the audience is.
Yeah. So there's a difference between sober from sex addiction and how long have I been in a program. It's a big distinction. I've been in the program 5 years and I've slipped 4,222 times. No, I've slipped a lot, right? But I keep coming back, keep coming back, right? And now I'm in a healthy relationship, right? Sometimes I had 6 months, sometimes I have a year, sometimes I have 3 days. I want to talk about the difference really quickly because I thought this was where this question was going. There's a difference between emotional sobriety and chemical or process sobriety. And I mean, a lot of people have said, well, I don't drink. I don't act out. I don't reach out to women or men. But emotional sobriety, the core of this program is emotional sobriety because only the first step has the word alcohol or cocaine or whatever your drug of choice is. And, I think it's great that you're not acting out or using your drug of choice. But if you don't have emotional sobriety, that ain't good. That's my answer.
Yeah, I want to sit there for just a minute. I think this is interesting, and I'd like to get your take on this, Michael. So there's a few terms that I hear in the rooms that I use in the rooms: abstinence, sobriety, recovery. How do you differentiate those, and how would you define each of those in your experience?
Oh, you could do it better than me, Justin. I don't even know, but there is a difference between, I don't know how is abstinence, not the substance. You described it. How would you describe it? Because I don't have, how would you describe it? Because it is three distinctions. Yeah.
I think it is too. And this is just my take that I wouldn't take this as gospel truth anywhere, but abstinence for me would just be not using the drug of choice, not acting out, not picking up, whatever it is that I define that. And it's a white knuckle type experience. That's how I see abstinence. Sobriety is I'm not acting out, but I am doing things that are positive in replacing it. I'm not just gritting my teeth and holding on for dear life. There's a positive momentum moving forward. And recovery, I think, would be close to what you're talking about with emotional sobriety, where I'm the promises that are in the big book. I'm able to do things that other people just aren't able to do because I'm maintaining fit spiritual condition. My spiritual condition is fit. And that's kind of how I would differentiate those things. Do you have any feedback on that?
Perfect. Ditto.
Okay, excellent. All right, we have an anonymous question that came in from the audience. Is there anything you like about the program or that you appreciate about the program?
It saved my life. There's more I like about it than I dislike about it. I'll say that. I'm not a big book thumper. I'm not somebody who says, well, I got a problem. We'll just go to page 74. Is that bad? No, I just don't think the big book always has all the answers. Um, I think the biggest part of the 12-step program, and you talk to like AA agnostics in their program, and there's a growing fellow. I didn't realize how big that's like. It's growing. Not saying I'm going to join that fellowship, but they say that what makes this program unique is the connections we have with people and the ability to somebody to share their experience, strength, and hope, and then say, "Oh my God, that person's just like me," and they're farther down the road. And I haven't found any other program out there in the world that I've explored that does it as well as 12-step fellowships of being able to connect with somebody at that level. So more good than bad. So I don't mean to sit here and I hope people don't take it like I'm ripping the program to shreds. I only pick 5 or 6 points that I don't like about the program or I think improved. I got 100 points that I love.
Yeah. All right. Thank you for sharing that, Michael. You talked about that voice, the inner voice, and that you trust it more. It's developed. Tell me the difference a little bit from you, what you perceive, the difference between your inner voice when you first came into the rooms versus what it is today. Is it the same voice? Do you think it's the same source? Or what do you think about that?
Man, Justin, you always ask really good questions. I need to do some research on that one. My inner voice coming into the program was, Michael, you're worthless. You're a piece of shit. You suck. You're a failure. You got a divorce. You're a terrible dad. It was negative, 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 right? I call that the lower voice, right? The higher voice, I think, was always there. The higher self, I just couldn't hear it, which is smart. You're intelligent. You're a good dad. You're a good provider. You're a good therapist. And that lower voice was so loud that I couldn't even get there. And I couldn't sit still with that lower voice long enough to get through it. To me, that's what meditation is. It's to sit still as long as I can without moving a muscle. So I can start hearing what my higher self says over my lower self. I believe in affirmations. Here's why I believe in them, and here's why I think they don't work. I don't know if that's kind of a contradictory statement. When we were at the Meadows, it made you do 3,000 affirmations a day or something like that. You had a little clicker, and the affirmations: I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, I'm this, I'm this, I'm this. And I have to do I did it, but I had to do like 10,000 a day because for my whole life, I said so many negative things that negative muscle was so strong that to override that, I just had to do so many positive affirmations. So I think it does work kind of with like neuroplasticity. I think that stuff does work. It just takes a long, long, long time to strengthen that muscle and to change kind of neurons and stuff in your brains, the neuroscience in your brain.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you for sharing that. All right, this next question, I just posted it in the chat. It's an anonymous one, but I just posted it. It's kind of a statement followed by a question, so I want you to be able to read along with me. It's so vital that this is not a religious program. We are on a spiritual journey aiming for spiritual perfection, knowing we will never get there, being human and all. I wonder if this idea of higher power not being me helps me get out of self. God or higher power or higher self can be equated with the principles of the program and the promises. What is my guiding light today? It's so great I get to play around with whatever will help me stay on the break even if the break itself changes. So any thoughts on that before that question? What was the acronym for SLIP? Any thoughts on that statement, Michael?
The acronym for SLIP, sudden loss and priority. I think the program overall is not a religious program. I think there's aspects that have Christian slants to it. It's subtle. And I just think they're subtle. And again, overall, a spiritual program, right? I'm just saying there's some little things that I think might make the program more inclusive from religion.
Hey, Spearheads, if you're looking to dive deeper into the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous with people who live the the solution, then you won't want to miss RICO 12 Big Book Roundtable. Join David G., Nikki M., and me, the moderator Justin B., 3 recovered addicts from multiple fellowships, as we break down the Big Book line by line. In each 30-minute episode, we share our experience, strength, and hope in a real, raw, and practical roundtable discussion. So, if you are ready to learn and apply what you learn, tune in to RICO 12 Big Book Roundtable on your favorite podcast platform. Yeah, thank you, Michael. All right. Next question from our audience, and I've got a lot that are coming in, so I'm going to try and get to them all. And I've got several that I've written down here, but we'll see what we get to here. Next question, anonymous. Thank you, Michael, for your story. The Big Book talks about recovery where we are straightened out emotionally and physically because of our spiritual malady that has been removed, because the spiritual malady has been removed. Sounds like you relate to that. How has that been your experience, that when the spiritual malady has been removed, you straighten out physically and emotionally?
Yeah, well, I think the fourth step is the most fourth and fifth step, most powerful step. It's where I lose most of my sponsees, especially that fifth column, right? So where am I at fault? Where am I to blame? What do you mean? I mean, it's like, did you just hear what I said? What my wife did to me? What my coworker did to me? What my sibling said to me? And that's where the spiritual awakening experience happened for me. Is when I went, especially my first sponsor. We must have done it for like 3 hours. I must have had, can't tell you how many resentments, maybe 50, 80. And then I got to see over and over and over again, same thing. And I think that's why when we use the SLAA or the Spiritual Gangsters, the book that was the sponsorship book that was developed by Cocaine Anonymous, and why can't I think of the gentleman's name? You know who I'm talking about, Justin, who made that book. Cameron.
Cameron F. Yep.
Cameron. That's why I say you only have to do, now if I sponsor somebody, you really have to do like 5 to 6 resentments. You'll get the pattern quickly. And I got to see how much I isolated, how much I was arrogant, righteous, and selfish over and over and over again. And once I got to see that, boom, the spiritual awakening happened. Now, I got to work on it. It's not like it's gone. I got to work on that. And the program talks about that. But people, for me, the difference between me and people who aren't in the program, us and the people who are in the program, we know how sick we are. And if somebody calls me selfish or arrogant or righteous or a terrible listener, my response is, oh, thanks for telling me. I've been working on this for 25 years and I'm going to keep working on it. And can we talk about that? Right? If you say that to somebody who's not in a fellowship, right? Those are fighting words. I'm not going to swear. Who do you think you are? What do you call me selfish? I'm a great listener, right? And they don't know how sick they are. That's really the main difference between people who are in a room and not in a room. We just know how sick we are, and we're working on it. They think they're healthy. Now, I don't know. That's kind of what messed me up my whole life, is I thought mom and dad and these adults were healthy, and they knew what they were talking about. And then I found out, maybe they're just as worse sick than I am, and they don't think they are.
Yeah.
How that answers your question. That's what came up.
No, I appreciate that. And that question you say, hey, when somebody tells me you're selfish or whatever, I still, that defensive comes up, but then I can pause. I think let's see, what did you say about shame? The thing, self-hate and no. Until pause, postpone action until serenity enters. Is that what that is? Yeah. So often when I get those hackles up and somebody says something that I just go, if I pause and breathe for just a second and go, you know what, I can see where, even if not right now, I can't see that I'm selfish right now. I can see where I have been in our interaction in the past. And I can say, thank you for pointing that out. I am working on that. And I really appreciate that. And that pause acronym was very helpful for me. All right.
You heard that one before? Have you heard that before, Justin?
I think I heard that actually maybe from you in a previous
really? Okay.
In a previous one.
I didn't make that one up. I stole it from somebody.
Yeah. Good. Okay. All right. Let's see. Next question when you say trusting yourself, are you trusting the self that has always been with you, your spirit self, higher self? Is not the lower self that is living the new experience with you, listening and trusting? How do you differentiate between the two, the higher self and the lower self?
Yeah. Well, that's a work in progress, right? To me, I call that a spiritual muscle. So I use the example of I go to my spiritual gym every day, which is meditation and prayer and all the things I do in the morning, right? And so it's the same thing as going to the physical gym. So, for example, if I go to the gym, I haven't been to the gym for a long time, and I want to be able to bench press 200 pounds on the bench press, I can't do that. I got to start off with bar, right? And over time in developing that, my muscle gets stronger. And I think that's the same thing with the lower self and the higher self. That for decades, I listened to my lower self. I had a very, very strong lower self muscle. And I think most people do, right? I know what I don't like about myself. I know what I hate about myself. I don't know what I love about myself. So by practicing meditation, practicing these principles, practicing what I do, right, on a day-to-day basis, I'm able to then grow that muscle. But it's a weak muscle and it takes a lot to grow it a little. At first I can only do 30 seconds of meditation. Now I could sit still for an hour without moving and be able to listen to the lower self and distinguish between the lower and higher self. Now that's something that's taken days, weeks, months, decades to get to, and getting better at it every day, I think.
Yeah, thanks for walking through that self-reflection and differentiating the two. And there have been several questions about that. Hey, higher self, do you not attribute that to higher power? Big Book says we found God deep down inside of us and whatever. Talk to us. I know you've already addressed this a little bit, but go there with that higher power versus higher self. Is that same thing, different? Is there a differentiation?
Yeah, I got in this discussion with my rabbi, and she said, Michael, you do believe in higher power. Higher self and higher power are the same thing. It's going down deep inside you. For whatever reason, maybe I still do believe in a higher power, but for some reason, a higher power is always something outside of me that somehow had influence of my life, and I was powerless over that. And somehow it's going to guide me. And I had no, I don't know the word I'm looking for, but it had me not be able to get an action in life. It had me be stuck. And yeah, so if you consider it deep down inside of me, that God is deep down inside of me, I can get my arms around that. And a lot of this I think is semantics, right? But for me, the thing about a higher power is what the good thing we talk about in this program and in the big book is that it's whatever I make it to be, right? So if I call it higher self and it's inside of me, well, if it works for me, it works for me. That's my higher power, I guess. Good question. These are tough questions around higher self and higher power because I've been struggling with it. If
Yeah.
anybody hasn't been struggling with that, oh, I figured out God and I figured out a higher power and I understand it and it's not logical. I'm of the educational variety, right? I need to really understand, and that's hard to understand. So to get it inside of me, I could understand that a little more.
Hey, Rico 12 Spearheads. If our recovery resources have helped you, please consider a donation. Your financial support, as well as your word of mouth support, keeps Rico 12 running and reaching the man who is still sick. Donate today at rico12.com/support or check the show notes for PayPal and Venmo links. Every contribution helps carry the message. Thanks for being a Rico 12 Spearhead. Yeah. Michael, there's every like we've already talked about, every time you speak, the questions are like, whoa, this is making me think. This is setting me I'm uncomfortable with these things.
Yeah.
And I love, and I'm going to read a paragraph from page 568 of the big book. This is from Appendix 2 of Spiritual Experience. And this is the final quote on that in that thing. There is a principle which is a bar against all information, and meaning it's going to block me off from anything, which is proof against all arguments and which cannot fail to keep a man in everlasting ignorance. That principle is contempt prior to investigation. And I think what you're sharing with us here is you're trying to eliminate that contempt prior to investigation from your life. And I think that's something that's uh, very interesting. Now, I may not, others may not agree with that, whatever that looks like, but I love that you are trying to live that example. Tell me some example, or give me a little bit deeper more on that concept of contempt prior to investigation and how that can block people.
Right. I would say as a newcomer, I did no investigation. I had no personal experience. And I was like, we should change the big book. We should change this. We should do this. I don't believe in that. And I had no knowledge. I wasn't even close to sober in any, or I had a little sobriety. Now I have all the answers. Now I'm not saying I have all the answers. I mean, I don't, but I've been around a few 24 hours. It's something I take really serious and really looking for myself before I speak something. Do I really get behind this? Do I believe in this? So, that kind of means to me, there's a lot of things that I say and do without any investigation. And then I make a fool out of myself because I don't know. I don't do the research. I don't spend time in meditation really looking for, is that true for me? And I just say something or do something or send the email. And then I'm like, oh man, I didn't know that. And if I'd done 5 seconds of research, I wouldn't have sent that. So that's kind of what that means to me.
Good. All right. Thanks, Michael. One more question before we start wrapping this up from another anonymous question from our audience. If the program has been working and continues to work and has been the foundation for many other 12-step programs, what would be the main benefit of changing the basic foundation of that?
It's a horribly unsuccessful program at large. Very few people have finished working the 12 steps to come to this program. Next time you go to a meeting, ask somebody who's finished working the 12 steps and is sponsoring. Usually very few. So more people, it's the most successful recovery program we have, and it's still very unsuccessful. So if somebody's struggling with addiction, I would send them to this program. I don't know anything better. But overall, when I go to the rooms, a lot of people aren't doing so good. When I take a break and come back, I got the same people saying the same thing. Now, I'm not saying was like that for a long time. So I think it excludes a lot of people. There's not a lot of people on this call right now. Considering how many people are out there, and we have this many people, it's not to say there's not good, but small amount. And if you look at the number of addicts out there in the world and the number of addicts that this program has, it's helped millions of people, but there's billions of people it has not helped. So that's just a weird answer, right? To say it's the most successful. I highly believe in it. And the reality is the percentage of people who actually do the program, right? Finish the 12 steps and then sponsor and do all that kind of stuff. 98, it's super high. But the majority of people, and I don't have any numbers. I'm making this shit up. This is not contempt at all. Contempt without investigation. In my experience, there's more people on call that aren't getting through the steps, who aren't getting through the program to live it than are. So that's a problem.
Thank you for sharing that, Michael. All right. Any final words of wisdom before we start wrapping up?
Oh, man, no. It just makes me think more. Maybe I'll come back tomorrow or next Friday and give a whole different point of view after I heard all these questions. And it's hard. I think the challenge for me is, what does Michael believe in? And I've always had a guru. I've always listened to other people. Other people always know more than me. And it's been the biggest challenge of my life. That's why I'm a codependent, right? I had no emotional sobriety. So I think that the biggest is, for me, the message I would be is, what does Matthew believe in? What is Desiree? What is Shalino, all the people here, what do I believe in to the core? And I think so much of what I've spoken over the years, it wasn't me speaking. It was Justin speaking. It was my mom speaking. It was somebody else speaking. And I wanted to believe it so bad because I had none of my own beliefs. And that's okay. That's what got me to where I am today. But then at a certain point, I have to own and really look at what does Michael believe in. So that would be my final point.
Thank you so much, Michael, for a thought-provoking RICO 12 speaker meeting. I'm grateful for you coming on and sharing your experience, strength, and hope, and making me go, okay, let me think about this and try to keep that bar from of contempt prior to investigation away. If we missed your question here in the live audience, or if you'd like to continue the conversation, join our WhatsApp community. I actually put the link there in the chat if you'd like to jump in there and join in this this conversation, or you can email at rico12pod@gmail.com and I'll get you added in there. If you haven't already done so, please consider rating and reviewing the podcast on Apple Podcasts and or Spotify. It's a powerful way to work Step 12 and share recovery with others. It gets these episodes get listened to many times each week, and I'm just grateful for that. Keep that sharing it out there because these messages will resonate with somebody that will really help them in their recovery. Next Friday, we hear from a first-time RICO 12 speaker, Troy O. And like I said, he's a first-time speaker. I look forward to hearing his share next week. Stay updated via WhatsApp or on our email list to get more details on that. Now, let's wrap up with the serenity prayer that Michael's going to take us out with.
All right, here we go. God, grant me the serenity. Grant us the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, the wisdom. Thy will not earth be done.
Amen. Amen. Thank you so much, Michael. Remember, everybody, and this is my take, there is one who has all power. That one is God. May you find God now. Keep coming back, and when you do, come all the way in, sit all the way down. Let's trudge this road of happy destiny together. Work it. You are worth it.
Standing still a moment, carving out this time, reflecting on the landscape of this life of mine. Peaks too high to conquer, streams too wide to cross, troughs too deep to walk through without incurring loss. Yet here I am, still standing tall, despite the rough terrain. One like me survived the storms and walked through wind and rain. Still standing, I will fight the good fight, still searching